Hello, this is John D. Callahan. It is October 15th, 2022. What if I were to tell you there are two miracle drugs, just two, and you could take them, they're easy to get, easy to eat, and inexpensive, and you could take those and it would solve your health problems. Two miracle drugs. What if I told you they existed? They do, and I'm going to tell you what they are in this video. But before we get to that, I'll give you a little background. I am 67 years old. I have been taking these two drugs every single day for over 30 years, from my early 30s to now 67 years old. Look at me. I was carded earlier this year. I said, "How old do you think I am?" He said, 40 something. The gentleman thought I might have been a 20-year-old that looked very old, and they were very cautious. Instead, I was a 60-something-year-old that looked in his 40s, carded, and I'm 67 years old. And I had my physical a few years old at 59. The doctor said, "Really, Mr. Callahan? You're 59? You have the body of a 40-year-old." I was at a casino once at a promotion not too long ago. And the woman implementing the promotion started laughing, had to call her colleagues over and said, "Look at this guy, he's 60. Well, whatever it was, I can't remember what I was, 60. I had to have been over 65. I remember that. Anyway, and my calcium score, 0. Nothing. There's not even a 1 in any one of the 4 coronary arteries. Every one of my 4 coronary arteries have no plaque, no detectable plaque whatsoever, 0. And I will show you that later in this video. My lipids are perfect, nearly perfect. I will show you that. All my other numbers are very good. My A1C is normal, and I will give a little more explanation of that later in the video. And my triglycerides, again, are great. Part of my lipid profile. And on my stress test, I took a stress test last year. I did almost as well as in my 30s. I went over 14 minutes, heart rate up to 100, 160, and no issues at all, a few palpitations. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you what those two miracle drugs are in this video. And I'll give you a little background. I'll give you a little background now on how I made this discovery. I had a pretty much typical diet, nothing special at all. Ate a lot of cereal, ate kind of a standard American diet of all things. It's maybe leaning towards the Mediterranean diet because I'm half Italian, and my relatives used to put on huge feasts. Some of them were first generation Italians. They used to cook the sausage and the pasta all day. My great-grandmother was born in 1886, and her daughter and her other daughter, they used to cook the pasta all day. Best thing you ever ate in your life. But anyway, the point is, I ate a lot of cereal. I did watch my weight. I did exercise, but there was nothing special. I ate hamburgers, French fries. I used to go to Jack in the Box, eat French fries. Nothing extraordinary. Pretty good variety, but nothing whatsoever. It's little cheese, but lots of pasta, meat, breads, cereal. I love donuts. Nothing special about my diet at all. I was quite an athlete, and I'm thin, so it's not surprising I developed atrial fibrillation at a young age. And that's pretty common, like for basketball players. I was quite a basketball player. Like Jerry West, Larry Bird. There's such a stress on the heart that atrial fibrillation can, in my opinion, develop at a young age. So that happened to me. I started going to cardiologists, starting to take my health very seriously. And I had my chemistry checked and my lipids checked. My triglycerides were over 300. And by the way, my father had triple bypass surgery in his 50s. Now, he smoked, but nevertheless, He didn't take the 2 miracle drugs that I'll be telling you about, and he didn't watch other things, and he smoked, but nevertheless, triple bypass in his 50s. And some of his relatives and my relatives dropped dead, and you probably have relatives that dropped dead in their early 40s, 50s. My brother-in-law, I told him about one of the miracle drugs, which again I'll be telling you about a little later. And forgive me for the suspense, because I don't like that either when I'm watching videos, so I apologize for the suspense, but I'll be getting to them soon. He took one of the miracle drugs at my recommendation, and he had several relatives dropping over in their 40s and 50s, and there was a great concern about his health. He took one of the miracle drugs at my recommendation. He's older than me. He's 70 years old. He's out playing tennis with my sister. He hasn't had a problem at all. Okay, I'll be getting to one of them. These are one of the 2 miracle drugs. So I said, I asked my doctor, I asked my cardiologist. Now this is the easier of the 2. I asked my cardiologist, what should I do to get my triglycerides down? They were over 300. He said, try fish oil. Here's the first miracle drug. Fish oil. I've taken a lot and a little, but it's averaged. I will show you, not that you aren't capable of visualizing it. That's it. Is that hard to do? Inexpensive, easy to get. I started taking fish oil. I probably average, it's varied, but I probably average 4 capsules a day, every single day, for over 30 years. My triglycerides came down immediately. I'll show you them in a little later in this video. I'll show you the actual lab report. I think they're 60 something right now. But I don't even worry about it. I can take more fish oil, it'll go down a little more. Less, go up. It was a piece of cake. Now the harder problem, which led to miracle, and this is probably even more important and more interesting. Miracle drug number 2. I said, how am I going to get my HDL up? My HDL was in the low to mid 30s. Often it was the low 30s, HDL. And I knew it was important to get that up. My other my other lipids were fine. So how am I going to get that? Now this is back. Remember, this is over 30 years ago. I didn't have the internet. You used to have to go to the library and do research, or you might get lucky enough to see something in the news or in print. Well, that was your research. It took me years to figure this out. Years, not 5 or 10, but it did take years of trying to figure out how am I going to get my HDL up. And then I noticed the Mediterranean diet. And I said, what is significant about the Mediterranean diet? And the blue populations and creed. And so I started looking at all of that. And I said, well, I'm eating all this other stuff they're eating. It's not that big a deal. I'm eating this and that, and I eat pastas and breads and legumes. Is that the right? Legumes and beans. And I said, well, I'm eating all that. That's not going to make any difference. I ate a wide variety of foods, the standard American hamburger, eat standard American diet, maybe more of a Mediterranean, but I was eating cheese, and it wasn't that much different. What is the difference? What is going on here? Olive oil. They eat loads of olive oil. I said it's an oil, like fish oil, olive oil. So I said, well, I'll take olive oil, and I guess, well, it's the monounsaturated fat, and oil in olive oil. It's the monounsaturated is omega-9. Now you hear so much about omega-3 and omega-6, but there's lots of omegas, and there's lots of versions. There's 8 versions of omega-9. Now omega-9 is not an essential oil, so you think it's not that big a deal. There's 8 of them. Your body can make it. It's the miracle drug, omega-9 in olive oil. It's not the breads. It's not the Mediterranean diet. You eat so much bread and you eat pasta and you eat the fish. Well, the fish is the fish oil. And you eat the legumes and then you have some. No. It's the monounsaturated fat in the olive oil. The olive oil is this important, and everything else is this important, and is negated by the olive oil. That's what's going on. The omega, And the omega-6 and omega-9, yes, they're essential. But the omega-3, and like, well, there's different kinds again of these things. The omega-3 in plants like walnuts is much different than the omega-3 in fish oil. The omega-9, the omega-3 in walnuts, it doesn't matter. What matters, the miracle drug, is this. It's the omega-3 in fish oil. Okay, and it's the omega-9 in the olive oil. So I started to eat olive oil, but I couldn't eat it because I have atrial fibrillation. Olive oil put me into atrial fibrillation. I don't know why. I'm not going to tell you I know why. I'll probably never know why. But I do know that it did, and I do know that I could not eat olive oil. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? So I looked, and I'll show you a graph a little later in this video, little chart. So what can I eat? What's similar? Canola oil. Canola oil has tons. The primary thing in canola oil, just as the primary thing in olive oil, is omega-9 monounsaturated fat. It's the mono, so I started to eat olive oil. Now this was before I was too dumb to know. I mean, many of the pundits and the expert medical doctors on the internet will tell you it's highly processed and it's no good for you. I disagree. I think it's okay to eat canola oil. So I started eating canola oil, and an equivalent amount, about 4 tablespoons per day. And then I found, not even going to believe this, I found I got even a better profile if I mixed it with vegetable oils. So I've been eating seed oil every day for over 30 years, about 4 tablespoons, primarily of canola and a mix of vegetables, either 1-to-1 or it's 2 parts canola and 1 part vegetable, because again, it seems to work better for me. So this is it. This is miracle drug number 2. That's it. Miracle drug number 2. Canola and vegetable oil. And if you don't believe me, just spend a little more. It costs 4 times as much. This is 1/4 the cost of olive, but you eat olive oil. Eat olive oil if you don't believe me. But this is what I've taken. So here we go. Those are the 2 miracle drugs right here. Everything else is secondary. Doesn't matter if you're eating a lot of pasta or bread or even donuts or hamburgers or even French fries. I ate all of that stuff. I got this in my diet. It lowered my triglycerides. This in my diet, it raised the HDL. Again, it's not about omega-3 or 6. It's about omega-9 and the monounsaturated fat in this, even though it's non-essential. Like they say, there's 8 different kinds of omega-9. You can't intuitively say that eating it might not be a big help just because it's non-essential. So there you go. There's your 2 miracle drugs. I eat donuts, standard American diet. I mean, I did watch my weight, and it wasn't excess. I had enough sense not to eat soda all day, watch my weight, but it wasn't anything special. It was hamburgers, it was French fries, it was donuts, it was pasta, it was cheese. But other than getting the 2 miracle drugs, I didn't worry about my diet. Watched my weight, didn't go to excess, eating Coke, drinking Cokes all day, and sugar. But apart from that, it was nothing extraordinary. It was these 2 miracle drugs. All right, that's it. 30 years. 30 years, and this is about, I just showed you how much, what 4, and now you can obviously picture that, 4 capsules of this is practically nothing. This is how much, it's 2 ounces. It's 2 ounces or 4 tablespoons of this per day. And I used to put it in my Raisin Bran on top of everything else. I used to have a big bowl of high-carb Raisin Bran. Little Raisin Bran and shredded wheat every day. And I used to put 4 tablespoons 4 tablespoons, about 2 ounces in that cereal for over 30 years. And again, look at me. I'm 67 years old. I don't have they can't, there's the blockage in my 4 coronary arteries is zero, it's non-detectable. Now you can say it's all luck and it's just your genes, and that might be. I don't think so. I think it's part of it. Again, I started out with triglycerides over 300 in HDL, and my HDL is now in the 60s. I started out with triglycerides over 300 and HDL in the low 30s. My dad had triple bypass surgery in his 50s. It might be luck. It might be my genes. It certainly is to some degree, but I don't think so. You want to know what I think it is? I think it's the 2 miracle drugs. It's not even my diet. It's not even my diet. It's the 2 miracle drugs. That's it. Now, it is true, despite the miracle drugs, and I didn't worry about my diet. I did not worry about it, but it's kind of dawned on me with eating Raisin Bran every morning and loving donuts and not worrying about that anything. You know, I need to check my A1C, because even though my glucose was normal, usually, except when there was a time when I was eating handfuls of M&Ms every day to get the dark chocolate, it did go up to like 120 or something. Apart from that, my glucose was normal, but I said, in the 90s typically, I said, I got to check my A1C. And sure enough, it was 5.6 and it ticked up to 5.7. I went pre-diabetic. So what did I do? I did keto. I've been studying and I've cut my carbs down and kept the miracle drugs, obviously. And I've done keto now, and my A1C has dropped to 5.4, and it probably will continue to drop. And I'll show you that too. I'm about to show you some of my actual medical records. But anyway, I've done this several times, but I will show you again. That's all you have to do. All I have to do, and not worry about your diet too much. Don't go to extremes in your diet. I would recommend low carb or Mediterranean or low carb, and don't go to excess. Kind of watch your weight. Do some intermittent fasting, learn some of that, but it wasn't anything. It wasn't anything but this. It's 4 capsules of that and 4 tablespoons of that every day for over 30 years. And this is about how much. And I used to put it in my cereal. Now I have kind of a keto cereal that I make, and I have a video on that. Anyway, let me show you some of my medical records. By the way, I loved pizza. Pizza was also one of my favorite foods, along with donuts. So I'd eat lots of pizza also. And as far as my atrial fibrillation, I've had it over 40 years. And I'm still paroxysmal, which means I just have an occasional episode. I'm in sinus rhythm over 99% of the time, and that's all through natural intervention. I have not had an ablation or any medical intervention. It's all natural. I've actually written a book on it, but I believe it's largely due to my good health per my taking the 2 miracle drugs. But again, I don't have a problem with atrial fibrillation. I have a normal heart. I have just a few episodes a year. I'm in sinus rhythm over 99% of the time. All right, now let's look at this. This is from Gluten Free Homestead. And what do we notice about this? You say, okay, here's olive oil. Olive oil, what do you notice about olive oil? What's the predominant ingredient in olive oil? Forget the omega-3s and the omega-6s. It's this. It's the yellow. It's omega-9 monounsaturated fat. That's the biggest thing in olive oil. All right, now, I couldn't eat olive oil. I could not eat olive oil. So what? I said, what am I going to do? Let's look at canola oil. Look at canola. Very similar profile. Very similar. Easy to get, it's cheaper, so I started taking canola oil. Next, this is my coronary calcium scoring. And you can see here, I'm 66 years old. This was done last year. Move down. Now, what do we notice about this? What pops out at you about this little table? It's full of zeros. There's nothing. There's nothing in all four of my coronary arteries. They couldn't find anything. Next, this is my stress test from last year. We see my age up here. So there we go, there's my age. And we see over here, we see this is, we see here, exercise time for 14 minutes. We see heart rate, 60. (160), time 14 minutes, heart rate 160. And symptoms, palpitations only. So I stayed in sinus rhythm and just had a few palpitations. That's what that means. Looking at my labs, we see my HDL, high 60s, my triglycerides, low 60s. Now, it is true that my total is somewhat raised, but that's only because I started keto and I started eating more fat. But it's actually better to have slightly higher total and to have slightly higher LDL is actually better, they're finding. And I'll show you that in a minute, why one big benefit of it. I'll show you that in just a second. But anyway, here's my hemoglobin A1C, and it ticked up to 5.7, pre-diabetic. I've done keto without, of course, taking out the miracle drugs. And it's gone down to 5.4. It'll probably keep going down. Okay, and now here's one of the big benefits of the keto and the high-fat diet is I used to have a problem with testosterone, and that's not something you want as you age. And I used to be on borderline low, and sometimes I would get a few low numbers, a few low readings. Now look at it. I've significantly improved my testosterone. And that's one of the big pluses of the my new ketogenic diet, without, of course, taking out the miracle drugs. And all my other numbers are fabulous. For brevity, I won't go into all of them, but all my other numbers are fabulous. And then there's my insulin. It's just 4.4, but all my other drugs are great. So yeah, there you go. That's my explanation and some data. And here we go. Miracle one last time. Miracle drug number 1. And that's fish oil. Miracle drug number 2, the monounsaturated fat. If you don't want to eat olive oil, if you don't want to eat this, eat my olive oil. But this is what I eat: 4 tablespoons every day, every single day for over 30 years. 4 capsules of these every single day for over 30 years. And it's this much. It's that much canola oil or olive oil. Those are the two miracle drugs. Thank you.